A very practical way to think about tendon rehab is 4 stages. Stage 1 being desensitization and finding the entry point. Stage 2 being building strength and tendon capacity. Stage 3 being restore speed and energy storage. And stage 4 being return to activity or sport specific demand. This is the same general progression that shows up in the slides that I've attached to the show notes. General progression or stages you could think about are isometric exercise is at stage 1, and then isotonic and heavy slow resistance as stage 2, speed and energy storage as stage 3, and sport specific loading as stage 4. So let's start with stage 1. In stage 1, the goal is not to fix everything. The goal is to find a tolerable entry point and have an analgesic effect. The tendon may be sensitive, and the person may have pain with daily activity. They may be frustrated and guarded. So the goal is to reduce excessive provocative load while introducing a level of load that the tendon can tolerate. This is where isometrics are very useful. Rio and Pham published an influential study on patellar tendinopathy, showing that a single bout of isometric contractions reduced tendon pain immediately for at least 45 minutes in duration. Not the isometric load that is 45 minutes post intervention, right? So it was a maximal isometric contraction, so maximal voluntary isometric contraction that they did in the study. And they also found a reduction in cortical inhibition, which gives us insight into a potential nervous system mechanism at play with tendinopathy here. And this is one of those studies that really shaped a lot of clinical thinking around isometrics for tendon pain. And when it comes to the actual protocol or implementation or dosage of the isometrics here, the protocol that was discussed is a 5 sets of 45-second isometric hold, often at heavy but tolerable intensity, with about 2 minutes of rest between sets. For patellar tendinopathy, that might be a Spanish squat, for example, or a wall sit. For Achilles tendinopathy, that might be mid-range, not in range, mid-range calf raise. The Achilles tendon is sensitive to compression. That's why you wouldn't want to do an in-range position there. Go for mid-range for that Achilles tendon. And then moving on to lateral elbow tendinopathy. For this might be a resisted wrist extension isometric. For example, you could use like a Tyler twist rod and just hold that position. And then for rotator cuff related tendon pain, it might be shoulder external rotation, isometrics, or even a farmer's carry. That's honestly my favorite way to implement it, as long as they can tolerate it early on. But here's where we do need to be careful and evidence informed. Isometrics are certainly not magic, even though they really are a home run in tendon loading, and they're not universally superior, right? Depends on the person, depends on the tendon even, right? So not every patient responds the same way. That's important to recognize and monitor the response to load. And even some later studies after the one by Rio and Pham have some mixed findings, really, when it comes to this protocol that was implemented in this study. Again, that just shows you that there is versatility and variability when it comes to application of this isometric protocol to tendinopathy. And this variability occurs with any sort of strategy that you're using with care or working with people in general, right? So some people respond very well and some do not. So the principle is not every tendon needs isometrics. The principle is use a tolerable loading strategy that can reduce sensitivity, improve confidence, and create an entry point into progressive loading. That is the real takeaway from that paper and some other evidence surrounding the protocol for tendon loading.